Yo,
Hey, how's it going?
shit, weird. Oh, that's why my headphones weren't plugged in.
Oh,
How you doing?
pretty good.
Oh, excuse me. I don't know if you saw the Jake Paul fight.
I saw
If you can
highlights.
call it a fight, yeah, that's all you needed to see. It was definitely clear that Anthony Joshua was paid not to hit him in the first 4 rounds, though.
Exceptional Radio.
Oh man, so about Jake Paul's fight. I mean, if I think it was more like a weird high purse exhibition. I mean, I know that they were actually throwing real punches at each other, but man, I I haven't wanted to see somebody lose like since the when Conor McGregor was out around running his mouth all the time. It's real weird. Like I don't even pay attention to Jake Paul or Logan Paul or any of that stuff really. It just pops up in the feed periodically whenever they're about to, go funnel a bunch of money. And and it's just I don't know why the algorithm keeps punishing me by showing me shit I don't know when I'm just not even interested in. Because now I have an opinion about some loudmouth boxer who got his jaw broken in two spots. He's not gonna be able to eat right for like for a long time. He's gonna be sipping out of a straw. That sucks.
Well, it's funny to see the delusions of a white man on display where they weren't even in the same weight class, but for whatever reason, Jake Paul thought he could step in the ring with a heavyweight former champion of the world. And
Like four belts too. Like that's pretty hardcore. Like I'm pretty sure that's
yeah,
like an undisputed champion level type champion.
and what he did to Ngannou, it's like he clearly was paid not to do that. What he did to Ngannou to Jake Paul for 6 rounds, and it's like the first 4 rounds, it even novices I think could tell that Joshua wasn't actually throwing punches. Like you didn't have to train to know that he was not trying. But then it was more like, is he gonna keep doing this the whole fight? And then once he actually started throwing punches, that's when the fight was pretty much over. Well, and what was even funnier was I think in Jake Paul's mind, he could run away from Joshua the whole fight, and he got a larger ring with that strategy in mind, not realizing that you need really good cardio to actually keep running away for the entire fight. Like, yeah, first 4 rounds you can run, you can get away, but eventually you're gonna start losing speed on those steps if you don't have the cardio. And that's one of those places that Floyd Mayweather, he was evasive
Man,
throughout an entire fight.
Floyd Mayweather could probably run a marathon and barely break a sweat.
Right, exactly.
Like he's got like god level cardio. And you can see it
Yeah.
because even after fights, he's not winded. He's just laughing and talking mad shit. Like, I guess in his when he was still fighting, but still, I think what the craziest part though is that like Anthony Joshua just he looked like he was just at the playground. He didn't look like he was fighting world class boxer. It was really weird. It was kind of surreal actually because I mean the only stuff I've actually watched of Jake Paul has been fighting retired boxers. Like people way past their prime, like not even really shouldn't even be in the ring kind of stuff. And so this was just like a whole different level of I'm not sure what to call it really because it was like boxing cosplay practically, but with like real world outcomes like broken jaw and tons of money exchanged and some people were very entertained by it, but I think for the wrong reasons.
Well, and on that note, it's like, is any amount of money worth the potential long-term debilitating effects from getting punched in the head by someone who's 50 pounds heavier?
Yeah. All those
Like the broken jaw is the immediate effect. That's who knows what kind of fucking CTE goes with that.
Yeah.
That's I mean, that's the equivalent of getting in
He
a
was in
high speed
several.
collision.
Yeah. Several. Like in quick succession.
Right. And that, I mean, the final blow, it's literally the equivalent of being in a high speed collision. And so that's where knowing that part, I don't know if there's any amount of money that's worth it. Because even Ngannou, as big as he is, he's definitely going to have some long term effects from getting hit by Anthony Joshua. And to him, is it worth it? I don't know because he has not fought in the PFL in which he was contracted to fight um, since Anthony Joshua. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think he fought before Anthony Joshua in the PFL, and definitely not after. Um, but it was like he made a smart career move by going to fight in boxing, but then that's where one has to question: was it a smart health move? And I'm starting to gather that it probably was not. Even for big guys, you're still getting hit by someone who's over 200 pounds and not in an insignificant
Yeah.
amount.
Oh man, I remember when I was like 20 years old. I think I was actually hanging out with Winston. We were watching like a K7 fight, and these were like two gigantic dudes, like ready to break each other, and it was the most uneventful fight. They just circled each other for the every round. They just circled each other and kind of felt each other out. And I said something, and I was like, man, this is kind of a joke. Like, what's the hell? And Winston was like, no, these guys are like absolute like top level fighters, and they don't want to get their leg broken by making them like they're taking the wrong step. And that was a really serious like those guys were like swords, and they needed to do was strike the other person once, and the whole thing would be over. And that's like right there. That was like the moment that I realized like, oh yeah, you can't really tell when they're like properly matched. Two dudes who are physically similar in size and proportion, they don't look like giants, and you kind of forget that the ring's even there because you're focusing on these two just bruisers just waiting to engage. And I didn't see that last night. I saw a person just. It was weird because it was like the opposite of all of his other fights. Like instead of being the one that was pursuing, he was like just trying to get out of the way the whole time. I think he landed one good punch, but then it like put his head like right next to AJ's glove.
Well, and on that note, that's if a if a fifth grader landed a good punch on you, would it hurt?
I mean, it might, depending if they got me somewhere.
That's what I saw when Jake Paul landed a good punch. Air quote is
Yeah. I mean, like a dog can ball tap you with its tail whip, and that hurts, but it's not like it's not the same. It really isn't. You're right. It's not. It's not just a size disparity. There's a very visible like, skill level, experience level disparity between these two people. And it was strange because like in the previous fights he looked so confident, and he seemed confident for a while until he got his bell rung that first time. And then he had this kind of look of like, holy crap. I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of either of those guys' gloves, though. That's the thing. Like, to me, it's just kind of I'm not even sure why I even tune into that stuff. Is actually what I'm starting to realize. It's got to be. It's the algorithm. It's just like feed me the stuff. It's like, oh yeah, this thing's happening. Oh yeah, I better check it out. So I'm aware of like pop culture.
I mean, kind of, but in that, I think there's also the
Oh,
notion
I like
of
watching a loudmouth schnook getting his bell rung. I do. That
right,
that
but
hot
also
hand
you need to
sandwich.
know if these things are being constructed around you in a way where if a bunch of people are watching a fixed fight but they're paying for it, you need to understand what's happening to operate within that and not have it affect you indirectly as
Yeah.
like it's going to try to affect you directly, but how it affects you indirectly is also like the end result of that is having to deal with people on Facebook who don't know the difference between fiction and reality, even down to the way that the United States military is presenting itself is clearly not it's not something that a powerful force would need to do, and it's something that is indicative of a gap in places that they're trying to cover up with propaganda and literal AI slop media that they're creating and pushing out. So this is also where the media that seems innocuous is the media that lays the groundwork for the cult-like mindset, down to every year a week or more worth of media about all about this fictional character and Santa Claus, and then you wonder how people end up believing in Jesus as like a mythical sky being that comes down, doesn't use his powers, and turns into a sheep. Like the most powerful lamb in the entire universe that has superpowers, but also just is here to die and to sacrifice himself. That people believing that starts with them watching fucking cartoons about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer fucking flying because his nose was red and blinking. Like it feels like those things aren't connected, but they definitely are in ways that, again, seeing Jake Paul go through that, it showed me a lot of things in terms of there is we all know that there is an overconfidence that comes with being a white man in America because the system is made for that person to succeed, but they spend their entire lives trying to convince themselves that the system is not set up for them and that it's set up for everybody else but them. And so when that thing is brought to a head in such a way that it's a public display of one person who has no business being anywhere remotely near where he is versus the other person who has earned and put in the time and effort to be on that in that position, and then to see the disparity in performance and the disparity in outcome, that is, it's catharsis for many people when it plays out that way. Issue being, all the times before, there was clearly some sort of constructed outcome to make white men feel better about themselves. And in that, Jake Paul started to believe that he was actually as good as the contracts that he was signing was setting him up to be in this fictional realm. But then when you get hit in the face by Anthony Joshua, it doesn't matter what contract you sign, your fucking jaw's gonna break. And that's one of those things where you can see the self deception evaporating in real time from start to finish in that fight, where he starts shooting double leg takedowns. And because Anthony Joshua is so much bigger than him, those double leg takedowns don't do anything. And so it's even more defeating to his morale. So you see, it's awesome to see somebody's spirit being broken in real time in a consensual way where both of those people signed up for this thing and they're both getting well compensated for it. But to see Jake Paul as representative of the most mediocre white man who has had the most insane financial success for being a literal clown and for basically being Jackass 2.0, to see his spirit get broken, it's catharsis for all the people who know that they would never have anything remotely near that position for being that average. And that's why it's it's Schadenfreude to watch it, but it's also like there's something beneath the surface that's happening, which is also where in America, because there is such a history of strife and trauma that is inflicted downward by the ruling class, and then you get people who want to join the ruling class, and the only way they do that is by inflicting strife upon someone else at the behest of that oppressive class. Then it feels good to see Jake Paul get his ass beat because he represents, even though he might not necessarily be that thing, he still represents it and he can never separate himself from it, which is why white men are so angry at people being able to learn about history and being able to understand the history of white men and white people in America.
Man, I'm looking at some of the pictures of his mouth, and like, it looks like there's a pretty serious separation of the jaw there. It's like his teeth are behind his other teeth. It's actually quite crazy. I don't think I've ever seen.
That's the visible damage.
Oh,
where
no, I know. Yeah, that's just what's visible, like from a terrible photo, a zoomed in photo from, you know, a sports photographer.
I seriously thought dude was gonna stroke out and fucking die or maybe have a heart attack because he did not understand the cardio assignment and was wholly unprepared for what he was trying to do. And in the process of like actually facing the prospect of someone who could separate one from not only their consciousness, but from their entire soul. If Anthony Joshua hit him on the right spot, that motherfucker would die.
Yeah.
And he knew that deep down inside. And that stress, that's where I'm like, it was killing his heart because it wasn't his cardio wasn't good enough. But that's where I was like, that was what I was anticipating to be the outcome as the fight went on more than
Double broken jaw.
I think Anthony Joshua accidentally broke his jaw. Even
he didn't mean to.
I don't think he was trying to hurt him. And even when he was like hitting him, I think that was accidental in that he was throwing power, but not he wasn't even really rotating his hips. So he was clearly pulling his punches, but the way he was doing it was almost like, okay, I'm going to push instead of punch. And there's a difference there's a snap that's the difference between a push and a punch, that he was not including that snap even in the jaw breaking strikes, where I'm like, okay, I feel like Jake Paul just got too tired to keep dodging punches in a way that if Anthony Joshua is not trying to hide his punches from you and he gives you not like a telegraph, but he just doesn't hide the punch, and you've been training, you can get out of the way enough as to where it won't kill you and it won't necessarily knock you out. And he might still make contact enough that a novice is going to see it as you getting hit. And I think that's what happened for the first 5 rounds. And in the 6th round, Joshua like stepped it up about 10%. And there must have been some clause in his contract where it was like, okay, you can hit him in the face after round 5 or something, where, but also you can't hit him in the face with a cross or something like that, like, or an uppercut or a hook. And they probably had a bunch of caveats where it was like the only strike he was able to hit him in the face with maybe was a jab or something along those lines, where
yeah, but
that's
Paul's
what it
face to
felt
his
like.
Glove technique was impeccable. I mean, he just kept putting his face in front of and intercepting like those gloves. Like, oh man, that's the weirdest part. Is that like, I don't, I really, I need, I actually now I kind of feel like I need to actually watch the damn thing instead of just the highlights. But from all the highlights, it looked like every time he went to go do something, he was just putting his face right in front of AJ's glove. Every time. Every single time. It was messed up. It's like the worst choreography ever.
Well, and I said this to Yasi. I'm like, it looks like 2 people who were paid a lot of money to do a dance and they didn't practice the dance. And in that, when you're saying it looked like bad choreography, yeah, it did. But also, that's where I feel like they did have some sort of choreo. Like, it wasn't, they didn't choreograph it and they didn't practice it, but there was some sort of like sign or something that they had whenever, like, if AJ blinked twice before he was about to punch or something, where
Oh, so
it gave.
there's a conspiracy about that, about Jake Paul signaling when he wants the other person to let him punch them. He sticks his tongue out at him and like flaps that at him, like gives him a kiss tongue. But apparently AJ missed that cue and socked him really hard. You know, at least WWE doesn't pretend to be real. You know, like The Rock puts on his Rock show. John Cena used to put on his John Cena show. Now I guess he's retiring, but like all of those guys, they put on their action acting persona and did the thing. But there was generally a clear line, like, oh yeah, these guys mostly go home and to their families, except for the young ones who are probably still out partying. But that doesn't matter. It's a circus. But parading the circus like it's real is just like when if I just pull up, I don't even know, like, is there even a boxing match happening anytime soon? So if I pull up like Extreme East or something and pull up a boxing match, is that gonna be real? Or are we just in the era of like, oh yeah, we're just paying to watch clown fights?
It's There's no guarantee that it's gonna be real either, just because it's, labeled boxing. In that, I just watched this documentary about this Indian boxer Rohit Singh and how he fabricated his record, and it's really easy to fabricate a record, is what I gathered from. This isn't the only person that's done it in modern times. This guy got into the UFC. Um, this Ukrainian fighter basically fabricated a bunch of fights on SureDog.net and used that to get into the UFC, and had like a couple of videos of him fighting that were meant to be fights that were sanctioned, but the people in the video were like not him or the other person. So he basically only the only reason he even got found out is because when he went and fought in the UFC, it was just horrendous. So somebody went and finally checked, and this was like, I think, 2023. Um, and then the UFC just got in trouble with the betting scandal this year, which wasn't their first betting scandal in the last 3 years, because then one of the coaches was involved, where he was letting people know injuries on their team. He was even betting against his own team. So there's all kinds of scenarios in which, yeah, these sports, combat sports specifically, because there's individuals who can make full decisions about the outcome of the event, are susceptible to gambling influence on the outcomes. But it's even happening in NBA. I think there was a referee that got caught recently in a betting scandal, and then there was a baseball player that got in trouble for making bets through his I think it was through his manager. So it's basically anytime somebody's betting, it does have the potential to affect the outcome of the actual sport. So this is where it's fucking gambling that's the problem. Clearly, it's gambling. It's always been gambling. And then you realize motherfuckers were gambling at Jesus's crucifixion and shit. Gambling has always been the problem. Seriously, I'm not even exaggerating, bro. This is like I'm
Man,
not about the crucifixion thing. That's not an exaggeration. If the crucifixion was any had any shred of truth to it, then the most true part about it was that somebody was gambling there. That's the most true thing about the crucifixion. And that's fucked up, which is I've never been a gambling person my entire life, so
yeah.
I don't feel like anything towards it. But everybody who does it knows it's like wrong, which is also what they just do it anyway. Like the legality doesn't change whether it's right or wrong. Like the notion that two people are
I'm generally pretty risk averse, and so the idea of just frivolously, just like, yeah, let's throw some money in the fire for the off chance of having an endorphin rush. Like, I can spend I guess it's $1 now for like a can of Coca Cola and have a similar endorphin rush and be completely satisfied. I guess winning money is nice, but I don't like the anxiety either. Especially when, like, if humans can calculate trajectory for launching essentially a rock into space and either have it land on the moon or fly around the moon and come back and not kill everybody, or chuck a rock into space and have it fly around the whole solar system and send us pictures the whole time. Like, we don't have to gamble. We can calculate things like with certainty. Like even to the point now, like where the, there are groups that fly airplanes into the eyes of hurricanes and just hang out to study that stuff. We have a really good idea of how a lot of things work now. Like it's incredible what technology can do. Like having satellites pointed back at the Earth to measure atmospheric conditions and learning about how, like, gamma radiation is formed in our own atmosphere just because of activity, the magnetic activity of the Earth. That's cool stuff. We can plan around that. I don't know. I guess there is the whole, the motto or the maximum. Let's roll the dice and see what happens. But that's what seems to be used in like a framework of let's see if we can get away with this, which also seems like a bad idea. Like why do we have to do something that we have to get away with?
right there for whatever reason American society has become so much about what is the most you can get away with in any scenario. It's like whether it's production of something and the most corners you can cut, or if you're an employer, what's the most you can get overtime without paying. Like, yeah, that culture,
That culture is very broken.
but it spreads through the media is what I have known it for a
Oh no, I
long
mean I
time.
think it functions exactly as intended, but it's just like what a like a it's just corrupt. It's like a
Well, but
failure.
even then, that's where, apparently now Turkey has a meth problem where they didn't used to have meth in Turkey, but the idea that America exported Breaking Bad and then meth follows, that shit, it's clearly the most toxic culture. And at some point, it wasn't, oh, I guess it was never not caustic. It was more so there just wasn't enough of it to burn everything down. So when there's enough rainforest to exist, it still offsets the destruction. But then it got to a point where American culture is in so many corners of the planet that now, but it's also the worst parts made to be as if they are traits to acquire or to aspire to be. And I saw this with a lot of the mentees that we had in different countries in Africa, where it was like the hyper capitalism at all cost was how a lot of dudes approached the marketplace. And it was 100% based on the notion that fake it so you make it is how people should do business. But the women weren't all operating that way, but it was like hit or miss whether they operated that way. So it wasn't as if they weren't doing it at all. It was just way more like 95% of the young males operated that way. And so it was possible to get them to operate in different ways, but they just thought that's how it was supposed to be because that's the media, the Wolf of Wall Street bullshit that gets exported and makes it seem like, yeah, you're supposed to just lie about your books. If your business isn't thriving, just fucking lie about it. If you're supposed to be creating a blood sample machine that only needs one drop of blood, but you haven't actually figured out how to do it, just fucking lie about it. You got an electric vehicle that doesn't work, fucking lie. And that culture, it it worked on paper when the goal is just to create profits on the books from quarter to quarter, but that's sort of creatively bankrupt and willing a culture that is also then willing to exaggerate or full on lie about where the creativity is going ends up diluting itself as to where it actually is. And by proxy of other places not doing that, it falls further and further behind just by lying to itself on paper. And it's one of those things that now we're basically in 1984 while a good portion of the other developed world is still actually in 2025 or 2026. They don't even have to go forward just by virtue of not moving backwards while America falls backwards. It's the same effect as leapfrogging. And so this is where seeing behind the lies of America, and especially in the cryptocurrency phase, I've known for a long time this is where America was going to end up. It's more so that so many people were believing the lies that the market was giving them for so long that it kept America out of this place. The 2008 recession never got reconciled because they just lied to themselves out of it temporarily. And we're still dealing with the same problems that they never solved from the 2008 crisis.
I wonder how this is all going to play out. Like increased or the deployment of an entire naval blockade.
You know it's not going well because they would be saying it.
No, I
You
mean,
know what
like,
I'm saying?
I mean, like long term, like.
I mean, I'm saying in the short term though, like shit has to not be working out so much right now in the short term on all these different fronts because of the way that the reporting is happening. And there is, I mean, what's also clear is there is no fucking plan. There's no fucking Illuminati. There's no Bilderberg group. There's no grand scheme. They're all flying by the fucking seat of their pants. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. All this shit's falling apart. And the notion of like constructed outcomes from the top, that shit is not happening. And it's definitely not happening in any way that they're like wanting it to. Even down to that they just failed to redistrict Indiana, bro. Indiana can't get Republican legislation passed. Think about that for a second. Because the implications of Indiana not cooperating with fucking Trump in 2025, before the midterms, before 2028, like, yeah, they just tried to redistrict Indiana and they did not get the votes. And it was because Trump used the word retarded and someone was like, oh, that's the hill I'm gonna die on. Good for him, I guess. But he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna vote with Trump because he used this word. And then Trump couldn't get legislation pushed through in Indiana. That's a big deal because that happened. It started before Marjorie Taylor Greene stepped down, and then Dan Bajinino, whatever the fuck his stupid name is. I have not bothered to learn it because he's a fucking coon and we don't respect coons around here. So fuck him and that whatever the fuck his name pronunciation is. But he also stepped down. So it's like people are jumping ship. Um, and let's not forget the what it was like when Elon and Trump were best friends. That was quite possibly the worst time to be alive in American history as far as like when your daily existence is just subject to constant threat and constant imposition of an authoritarian regime where you're like, what is it today? That 2 week period where they were like butt buddies has to quite like not as far as Americans actually um harming people physically, but as far as the mental effect of the United States government having control over media outlets and having a far reach in media, that was when you really it felt like you couldn't escape it. There was no Like the only place you could turn and get away from those two was basically just like shutting off all internet media and or outside, whether it's television or social media, and just focusing on anything that was made before like 2016. And that's the only way you can get away from them. But we're so far from that it's easy to forget how bad it was, which is where this administration is cycling very quickly.
And you
Um,
know, like they shut down. So Doge shut down a veteran crisis hotline, which is like necessary when veterans are having suicidal ideation or any of that stuff. They shut that shit down. What the fuck? Or they shut down one of the departments within that program. So this is like that's just another example of stuff that I don't like. I don't. I guess I just never dug deeply enough into it. I mean, aside from just being ideologically opposed to things that Elon wants to do for no good reason, like I was reading about electric vehicle technology, like the current state of electric vehicle technology, even with the lithium iron batteries that they've started to use that have lower density than lithium cobalt, and despite almost all of the world's copper being in the Western Hemisphere, all the good stuff at least, it's like in Chile and Mexico and Canada and USA and having substantial supplies of all the other stuff. It would literally require all of the rare earths on Earth to put electric vehicles on the road and replace internal combustion in North America, or sorry, in the United States. And even then, we don't have enough copper to build the electrical infrastructure to deliver to it right now. We don't have enough power generation. Like all of these things that are present, like are none of it does. It's like even if we did secure all the petroleum in the world right now, it would only give us a 50 to 80 year buffer. Like if everyone stopped fighting over it and everyone was just peaceful about resource distribution, we still don't have that much time left. And even then, unless there's like a really serious material revolution and a technological revolution, it wouldn't even matter if the world had cold fusion, because we wouldn't be able to deliver the power right now. And also, we still have to get around the whole capitalism thing, because somebody's got mineral rights, and they're not just going to hand over that copper. But again, if we could just, if all of humanity could agree, like, yeah, let's just, make this thing happen and have clean energy and distribute it. Like there's just not enough. There's just not enough material with our current technology. And it really kind of, it's one of those like kick in the teeth kind of moments. We've developed like photovoltaic arrays that are transparent. They function as windows, but there's a huge environmental impact to produce them, like monumental, and so that won't scale. And like with wind, yesterday I watched a video of tornadoes. It was just like one of those best of tornado compilation videos, and everything looked like, yeah, pretty normal. We've all seen a tornado rip a building apart, but I watched this one section where a tornado went through a field of windmills, and it turned those giant blades into just strings. And at one point, one of the windmills looked like Wacky Waving Inflatable Arm Flailing Tube Man. Things we can't even recycle those things. The blades from giant windmills.
well, but they're not that expensive.
They're not,
relatively.
but there's a lot of it's a lot of fiberglass and resin and metal, compound metal matrices, and all of those things get cleaned up by machines that run diesel right now.
Which again, it's like,
it's just a terrible, like, just a bad cycle.
well, but also like automobiles were fucking stupid. We have never come to the conclusion as a society that like individual cars were not a good idea over trains. And most of the problems in America, as far as transportation, could be solved by railways. But the issue is now building those railways is not feasible. But they used to exist is the problem, and they basically decommission
They're
the
getting
railways that
they're
they
getting
put in
turned
place.
into walking trails.
Right, yeah. So in that context, it's like, yeah, it's not actually feasible to move back towards trains and railways at this scale at this time. But that's also at like nothing works at scale, so nothing should be done like to focus at scale at first. It should all be local. And I think that's why there's this inherent hurdle because nothing like there's no solution that will come out the gate and work to connect America and
Yeah.
not be
Well,
just basically a burning like a pile of money.
capitalism was the big incentive for Sprint and what was the other one? The two, I think it's like Atlantic something or other. The companies that basically formed Sprint. It was a railroad, South Pacific Intercontinental Rail and Telegraph, and that was a big effort. That wasn't like, I mean, I'm sure the government was involved, but that was private companies building their own rail lines to engage in commerce, and then they agreed to work with each other. And I think that worked then, but I'm not sure that corporations today are really interested in like multi-decade long projects that are going to take forever because there's too much uh, regulatory interference. That stuff, there was no regulation, in the 1800s. If there was, it wasn't fast enough to do anything. Just build train tracks wherever they wanted to, practically, or wherever they could. Like the idea of just building a road today is just that's that's overwhelming. I remember when I was 10. I moved to Indiana when I was 10. So, 34, almost 35 years ago. And there was a big just debate then about I-69, and it wasn't even close to Bloomington yet. And I feel like they only finished it at, like, when did 69 actually come to Bloomington?
Was it like 2018? 2018?
The signage was removed in 2024. It was, and the
Oh,
new
wow.
I-69 opened through in 2024.
Wow. Officially?
Oh, yeah.
Christ.
So it took 35 years of people going back and forth. And I get it. There's a lot of contention about land values and people not wanting their businesses just cut in half, or their land that their farms were on just getting cut in half, or people losing their homes, and that stuff all sucks. And I want to feel some compassion about that kind of thing. But still, it took 30 years, 34 years. It's not like this stuff happens overnight. Even if there was a massive, concerted, like, federally subsidized, private sector initiated, let's build some new rails. And of course, like, the variation that we get is a crackpot pipe dream, like literally a pipe in the underground, like it didn't work. And they even convinced a few other people to try and develop the idea, but none of it worked.
Well, and then also the unforeseen outcomes where Bloomington didn't used to have that flooding until they did the 69 land uh like land modification to get the highway through, and then all those businesses downtown got flooded and they didn't have flood insurance because it never used to flood. So that's something. I-69 is now forever going to cause flooding in Bloomington in ways that the property values are going to be destroyed in certain areas where that wasn't even remotely an issue before.
The city is gonna shut down South College right in front of the convention center to build a new convention center on the other side of college, and so they're gonna build like some sky bridge thing. So they're gonna shut down the road for a couple of weeks, and then they're gonna shut it, reduce it to one lane until the construction project is complete. And there's a lot of people who don't like the idea of having a bigger convention center, and it's just one more reason for me to avoid downtown Bloomington now. And that won't take. That's not. I know that they have plans to get that done quickly, but none of these things ever resolve quickly. Like the whole strip of South Walnut between Seminary and downtown, like that whole thing got redone. They made it so people could walk on it, and so that it didn't look like a rundown commerce sector that failed. Now it looks like a developing commerce sector that's somewhat clean, even though people get attacked at the bus stop. I get it. Bloomington's trying to turn into a more robust and featured city, and I like that. I think that's fine, but it also seems to be coming with a lot of other really strange stuff. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is one of those reminders that I'm getting old and crotchety, and I'm turning into that old person that says, "Get off my lawn" or something. I need to like check myself. But I think that also comes with like, living in one place for a long enough time that and not actually engaging in that environment. So when changes happen, it activates part of my memory that says, "Wait, this wasn't here before." And I wondered myself, is it the change that bothers me, or is it these unexpected traffic conditions that I wouldn't say a thing about if I was just driving through some random city that I didn't pretend to know? Like how much of collective anxiety is really the result of just a lack of familiarity?
I mean, I think a lot, I think that's an astute framing of it. And part of that is we get so used to having some sort of at least semblance or sense of clarity, especially this is where, again, media and mass media give people a sense of knowing about things that really have nothing to do with them directly. But when you feel like you know what's going on, there's a sense of being grounded that once you lose touch with that, it feels like you're untethered and you need to like check on the news and check on CNN and check on MSNBC to get tethered again. And I think that like false sense of the tether being through information that then doesn't have to do with you is how people get detached from their actual locale.
Exceptional